What was the name of the credit union?
St. Paul Credit Union.
Oh, connected to St. Paul Church,
Sure.
which was the foremothers. Was it UCC at that point?
Oh,
Would have
yeah,
been.
it was
Oh, yeah.
UCC from the very beginning.
It was
I mean,
congregational and UCC, or was that German Reform?
it started off as a ministry of the evangelical church,
Okay.
but it was also influenced by the Reformed Church in America.
Yeah.
Because in New Orleans, we had a Reformed church. First Church had a Reformed church background. Well, when the E&Rs merged, about the time that Back Bay Mission began, then that all became, despite the fact that Lutheran was the moniker they gave the church in Biloxi, they called it the Lutheran Church. Well, it wasn't Lutheran, never had been. It was always evangelical Reformed. Then the E&R Church, Evangelical Reform, merged with the Congregational Christian in 57. And so it became, by the time we got there, it was just a borning, the United Church of Christ was just coming into existence.
Giving birth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That puts it in definitely a context, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, because I think that's beautiful that Back Bay Mission not only, they're really meeting the needs, and Back Bay Mission in so many ways has been nimble and kind of address the needs of the community, the growing needs or changing needs or whatnot. And I just think to establish a credit union for people that would not normally be able to get credit is pretty profound and a beautiful ministry.
And I don't know whether the credit union had anything to do with this, but we started Biloxi Kitchen Craft, which was making pralines, and as a source of income for people in the community. Ship them around the country. That was a good deal.
Yeah, that worked out well for a number of families.
Yeah,
is income for them.
Right.
That's beautiful. What a creative bunch, huh? So you shared a little bit about how your work at Back Bay Mission has affected your point of view, your worldview, kind of your ministry going forward. Is there anything you could put your finger on to kind of tell us how the work at Back Bay Mission has affected the two of you moving forward?
Well, I think in terms of my perspective, I think being in the South at the mission, as well as having the New Orleans experience, brief as it was, helped me to come to a point of view of appreciation for different ways of dealing with social crises, particularly the racial issues and so on. And I've felt for a long time that one of the advantages and disadvantages of being a militant civil rights activist is that you can get yourself shot on the bridge or whatever.
Yep.
And you can get yourself assassinated at the motel or whatever. Yep. And that has value, obviously. But there's also value in not getting shot at the bridge or wherever, and trying to build relationships and things to have happen that continue due to another strain of activism. So I think down in Mississippi, what we tried to do was not alienate people to the point that the whole congregation would dissolve. We reconciled ourselves to the fact that some people were going to leave and go to more conservative churches because we didn't avoid social issues, but we didn't make them the main focus. And so we used to say to our staff to console ourselves, our faithfulness is in inverse proportion to the size of our church membership.
Yeah.
But, the more faithful we are, the more people run off to someplace else. Well, that was just an overstatement of a fact. So we tried to keep relationships with people while at the same time not abdicating the social responsibility. And I think that perspective has helped to bridge gaps.
Yeah.
In some respects.
That was interesting because Reverend Ellerbrake and I have talked previous to this, and part of the conversation was about that very same thing, right? How
right.
I'm an activist myself, but I also realize, that it's really about building relationships, really being present, and living into those relationships so that you can be an influence, right? Be an ongoing influence,
right?
Rather than getting shot on the bridge, right?
That's
You're right, or shot at the hotel, or I think those are important lessons we all learn. And some of us, it's not our role. Some of us are meant to be like MLKs or Oscar Romero's, right? And others of us are meant to be who we are. And so I balance that here, especially at Back Bay.
And one of the things that comes to my mind is the Biloxi Ministerial Association. I was slated to be the president of the Biloxi Ministerial Association in 1960, which was the same year that I was asked to become secretary of the Missouri Advisory Committee Civil Rights Commission. Actually, the year I was asked, Mississippi, asked to join it, the Mississippi Committee. And when the ministers found out that I was doing that, they said, well, we don't think we're going to rescind our election of you to be president of our group because it might be too contentious. And so they did. And we still continued to meet and all that. And I continued to meet with them and everything, but I was no longer president of that thing, president-elect. On the other hand, Jack Argood, my successor, who Jack had worked with us while we were down there for 3 of the years that we were there. He came first as minister of Christian education, stayed on to become full-time pastor of the churches, which at that time was Uptown Church, First Church, and St. Paul. And Jack eventually became, instead of being the minister of education, became pastor of that church, of the church, the two congregation churches, eventually helping them to merge. Well, Jack became very active in the community and in the ministerial association and in lots of things. But he was also the same guy that went on the beach wade-in with my successor, Roger Gallagher, who wrote me this impassioned letter after we left Biloxi. Roger said, my brothers are in chains. What shall I do? And I tried to get him to calm down a little bit, but he ended up going into the wade-in, which was probably a wonderful thing to do, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Jack survived that, you see. When you talk to Joy sometime, you get that story.
Yeah.
And it was a very good lesson that there are different avenues to travel to reach a common destination.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, as we kind of try to bring this to a close, in Back Bay Mission's almost 100-year history, 99 point whatever history, right? As we turn 100 in 2022, what are you most proud of, or what are you most enamored with in the 100-year history? Both you, Johann, and Richard.
Well, I would say that one of the things that was most important was if we looked at what was happening to our young people without required education.
Wow.
Work that we did in setting up not only the teen town or the preschool programs, but just a phenomenal number of groups of various kinds, a library, and all of the staff acted as teachers all of the time and broadened horizons. And I think that we really, that work was very, very intensive and very, very important. And I think it made a phenomenal difference in what happened to the young people and their families who were there.
That's beautiful. That's a part of the history that, like, I knew about Mississippi, right? No longer requiring education, but I didn't know Back Bay was a part of that. The teen town was a part of that. Like, that's amazing. To me, that's just beautiful. And that's about access and equity, right? And around education, because the United Church of Christ, or especially our Congregationalist folks, established a lot of universities, and education was really, really important. So thank you.
The fact that Back Bay, we established a library, a lending library at the mission. And we did it in part, and major part, in fact, probably the only reason, because it was such a needed component in the community. And for these kids who weren't otherwise going to school. And then to have the Black children as well as white children be able to use that library, and to have Black kids coming in for sewing class and that sort of thing. I mean, this was a big deal in those days. When we had the ministerial meeting we had the Ministerium Association, Biloxi, part of the New Orleans Ministerium. There were 2 Black churches in New Orleans, Central and Beecher, and they had Black pastors. And we used to meet in New Orleans in the bottom of somebody's church, but then they wanted to meet at Biloxi. Well, to meet at Biloxi, you met in the community center where there are a lot of windows. And the first year they wanted to do that, the custom would be to serve lunch, at least when they came from New Orleans. Oh, no, our church council felt that was too far out, that we'd get in trouble. The second year,
Wow.
they agreed to do it. They'd made progress. And they said, yeah, we'll do it. And our young people served the lunch. And that was the year when the church council said, yes, we'll do it, but be sure you tell the police department so they know we're not planning an insurrection, because people will see through the window that it's integrated lunch. So I forgot to do that until the morning of the lunch. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to call the local police department. They'll just set up a mob maybe. So I'm going to call the FBI, which I did.
Wow.
During the lunch, Jimmy Cooper, one of our teenagers who was serving lunch, said, hey, Rev, you better go out back and see this guy. He's out there sitting in a car. I don't think he's up to any good. Went back out there, and here it turned out to be a plainclothes, indeed, an FBI agent.
Wow.
They sent over from Mobile or somewhere to just inform the local. He said, don't worry about it. I told the chief of police what's going on, so there won't be any trouble, but I'm going to stay here and make sure. That kind of thing went on. But to have that integrated meeting, small as it was, at the mission, and successfully, was a big deal, I thought.
Well, I really appreciate you both holding that history, right? And those stories, and being brave and resilient yourselves, right? And stepping into it and living into it. And being the change that you want to see in the world, that we all want to see in the world, right? That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So we have to bring this to a close. We're time limited, right, Kevin?
Right.
So we are grateful for both of you, and I honor you for the work that you do in the world and the work you continue to do in the world, right? And we are blessed, and we stand on your shoulders.
Hopefully we can have you back again too.
And we hope to have you back again.
Thank you for what you guys are doing. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got a staff now that we could only dream of when we were there in terms of its diversity and the work that you're doing. Great.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I hope you find a way, James, to start the congregation once again.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I love to see it.
I hear you. We've had some conversations with our conference minister, so kind of be on the lookout.
There you
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Peace
you
and
all.
love to both of you.
And
Okay.
you too.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
both of you. Thank you.
See you, Kevin. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I'll be in touch.
Thanks for what you're doing.